In this Genshin Impact guide, I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about artifacts, how they work, which ones are the best, where to get them, and most importantly, how to use them to make your characters unbelievably powerful, going all the way from this to this. I'll explain everything step by step so no one gets left behind. But with that being said, let's jump right into it. First of all, what are artifacts actually? Well, artifacts are equipment pieces for your characters that are used to increase their various attributes like attack, defense, HP, and so on. Every character can equip up to 5 artifacts: 1 flower, 1 feather, 1 circlet, a goblet, and a sort of clock, which we call sands. Artifacts, just like weapons, come in 5 different rarity types from 1 star all the way to the legendary 5 stars and can be, also just like weapons, leveled up to make them more powerful. But more on that later. But now, why are artifacts actually important? Well, pretty simple. Just like with weapons too, all stats on your character's artifacts are also added on top of your character's attributes. Think of it kind of like 5 additional weapons that you're carrying with you at any given time. You can get artifacts as loot from enemies, containers in the open world, bosses, and specific artifacts domains, but more on that also later when we talk about the best artifact farming methods. But for now, let's look at the artifact menu first. You can check out all the artifacts that you own in your inventory's artifact tab, or alternatively, in your character's equipment menu page under the artifact tab. Every artifact that you own has 1 main stat and can have up to 4 additional stats down here, which are called substats. All these stats are added to your character's attributes if you equip the artifact, not just the main stat. But still, let's take a look at the main stats here first for a moment. Every flower artifact will always have a flat HP increase as their main stat, as well as every feather artifact will always have a flat attack increase as its main stat. Flowers and feathers cannot have anything else than these main stats. However, with the circlet, sands, and goblet, this is very different. These 3 artifact types can have many different types of main stats. The circlet can either have an HP percent, attack percent, defense percent, elemental mastery, crit rate, crit damage, or healing bonus main stat. Sands can have HP percent, attack percent, defense percent, elemental mastery, or elemental recharge. And finally, goblets can have HP percent, attack percent, defense percent, elemental mastery, physical damage bonus, and the damage bonus of each of the 7 different elements in the game. Whenever you pick up an artifact that can have multiple different main stats, meaning a circlet, a goblet, or a sands, it will be randomized which one of these possible main stats it will get, and from then on, you cannot change it anymore. Don't worry, I'm well aware this sounds like a lot right now, but we're gonna bring some order into this mess here in a second. Let's just first quickly also take a look at the substats. The biggest difference between the main and the substats is how they behave when you level up your artifact. The main stat increases with every single level up that the artifact gets, however, the substats don't. Instead, with every 4th level up, your artifact gets an additional substat, which one is completely random, or in case it already has 4 substats, it randomly selects one of them and then increases that. So, as you see, there's a lot of randomization involved with artifact stats. And while you're down there, give the video a like so the YouTube algorithm won't hate me. Thank you so much for that, by the way. Let's bring some order into this ocean of artifact stats that I just dumped right onto you, shall we? While I was talking all about the main and substats, you were probably asking yourself the question, which artifacts do I even want? And which stats are good and which ones are bad? So let's go and take a look into this right now. First of all, flowers and feathers are pretty easy. Since they'll always have flat HP and flat attack as their main stat, there's not much to choose here. Which main stats you want on your other 3 artifact types, however, is the big question, and it always depends very much on which specific character you want to put them on. So there's not the quote-unquote way to victory here. However, we can generalize it a bit and simply put, it goes like this. Since the circlet is the only artifact piece out of all that can have crit rate and crit damage as its main stat, damage-dealing characters usually want either crit rate or crit damage as main stat on their circlet. For example, if you already have a weapon giving you crit rate, then you would want crit damage on your circlet and vice versa. Healers, in contrast, would naturally want a circlet with healing bonus, since also here, the circlet is the only artifact piece that can give this stat. And for specific characters that are meant to trigger certain reactions which can't crit, like animal characters swirling different elements for example, you would want to go for either elemental mastery or attack percent on your circlet. Moving on to the sands, attack percent is usually what you want to go for all those damage dealers that also want crit on their circlet. HP percent is what most healers want, since their heal often scales with how much HP they have. And again, those characters triggering a lot of reactions want elemental mastery here to max out the damage from those reactions, or if they're heavily relying on expensive to cast bursts, then energy recharge can also work really well on the sands. And finally, for the goblet, it's pretty easy. Again, healers usually want to have HP percent, and every other character that deals damage in some way or another wants their specific elemental damage bonus on the goblet, since out of all artifacts, the goblet is the only artifact piece that can give different elemental damage bonuses. So that would be it for the main stats. However, about the substats, you generally want to double down into whatever your personal character needs. For example, damage dealers want attack and crit, reaction characters more elemental mastery, and characters who burst a lot can also make good use of energy recharge. The only thing you usually never want to have is flat defense, defense percent, or flat attack, since percentage-based attack will always lead to a way higher overall value. Beyond these oversimplified basics, however, if you want to know how to build a specific character, then best check out a guide on this very character before you get into the artifacts. And in case you don't want to miss out on such character guides here in the future and see them day one at release, then you might want to think about leaving the channel a sub. Welcome to the crew, but let's go on for now. So, now that we know how artifacts work and which stats are the best for your character, there's one more very important thing to know here that we haven't talked about yet, and that would be artifact sets. Every artifact in the game belongs to a different set. The Traveling Doctors or Adventurer set are two examples that you'll probably encounter very early in your playthrough. But why should you care about which set a specific artifact belongs to? Well, if you use multiple artifacts of the same set, you will get an additional bonus effect beyond just the stats provided by the artifacts themselves. Every set gives you one bonus when equipping 2 and another one when equipping 4 artifacts from it. We call this a 2-piece and a 4-piece. Since you have 5 artifact slots, you can always have either 2 2-pieces or 1 4-piece on any given character. Now, if you're wondering which artifact set bonus is the best one, this is really difficult to answer because there are a lot of helpful bonuses out there and every specific character wants a different one. However, just note that having artifacts with good individual stats by themselves is almost always way better than combining bad artifacts together just to force a specific set bonus. But now that we understand artifact stats and sets, let's talk about leveling up your artifacts to make them stronger, because there's a great potential for wasting precious resources if you do it wrong here. First of all, as I briefly mentioned when talking about the main and substats, artifacts can be leveled to make them stronger. 1 and 2-star artifacts can only go up to a maximum level of 4, 3 stars however can already be leveled up to 12 times, 4 stars 16, and legendary 5-star artifacts have a maximum level of 20. Looking now at the maximum possible levels here, we can instantly see why higher tier artifacts with more stars are so much stronger. Not only are their base stats at level 0 better already, but also with their higher level cap, that means the main stat can be increased more often. And about the substats, remember what we said earlier? You gain an additional substat every 4 levels, and if you have 4 substats already, one of them gets increased instead. Also here, higher level means substats additions and increases happen more often, aka the artifact gets stronger. And not just that, higher star artifacts usually come also with more innate substats right off the bat. Some 5 stars can even start out having all 4 substats already, meaning every 4 levels from that point on, these will get further and further increased, making the artifact insanely strong. But with that out of the way, let's now talk about the leveling itself. Similar to weapons, in order to level up an artifact, you will need to feed other artifacts into it, or alternatively, use specific artifact upgrade materials. Usually, however, we just use other artifacts. But, and that's a big but, one thing to note here is that the upgrade costs increase exponentially. What that means is, getting an artifact from level 0 to 15 will need about the same amount of artifact XP and money as getting it from 15 to 20. So if you're tight on resources right now, then getting multiple artifacts up to level 12 or 16 only is usually smarter than leveling a single artifact all the way up to 20. For beginners, I would say, don't even level up 1 or 2 star artifacts at all, they're really not worth it. Rather, use them just as fodder for your 3 stars and above. And by the way, don't worry about leveling wrong or quote-unquote wasting your artifacts on leveling up the wrong artifact, because even if you have an artifact at a higher level already, and then you get something better that you want to invest into, you can still use your old one as fodder for the new one, and it will maintain 80% of the resources invested into it. For example, if I use a level 20 5-star artifact to level up another 5-star artifact that is currently at level 0, this will instantly boost the new artifact up to level 17, so you don't lose all that much of your investment. And here's another very important pro tip for optimally leveling up your artifacts. When you want to make an artifact really strong and optimize not only the main, but also the substats, then the best way to go about it is only level it up to level 12 first, and then take a look at the substats. Because remember, substats only get increased every 4th level up, meaning at level 12, there are only 2 substat increases left. If at this point the substats look good, then you can go and max out the artifact and hope for the best. However, if your substats at level 12 don't look too promising, say you got a lot of defense or HP percent, then it's best to put it in the dumpster now rather than investing further into it. Better start out with a fresh one instead. But now that you know all about how artifacts work, let's also take a quick look at how to best farm them. While higher level artifacts can be obtained from boss fights or the Spiral Abyss, these are usually not the farming methods you're looking for. The most used artifact sets can be obtained from specific artifact domains. These domains are spread out over the entire world map, and every artifact domain can drop 2 different 5-star artifact sets, as well as some others that will only go up till 4-star. Naturally, the higher your adventure rank, the higher star artifacts you'll have a chance of getting. Theoretically, those domains are available from adventure rank 22 on already, but ideally you only want to start farming for these artifact domains once your adventure rank is high enough so you could actually get the 5 stars out of them. Before that, I would say only go artifact farming if you feel like you really need to improve your artifacts in order to be able to even progress further in the game. And never, and I mean never, spend your fragile resin on artifact domains. Since artifact farming is so incredibly RNG based, you always want to rather invest your fragile resin into more predictable farms like bosses or weapon upgrade material domains. Oh yeah, of course, and there's also a feature called the strongbox, which you can access at the alchemy terminals in every bigger settlement, where you can go and take 3 of your random 5-star artifacts that you don't need anymore and turn them into 1 5-star artifact of a specific set of your choosing. This can be a very helpful tool if you want an artifact set where you don't really feel like farming the domain because maybe the other 5-star artifact in that domain is not so good or you don't need it or anything. Then rather farm a domain with 2 good stats, and whichever 5 stars you get out of there that you feel like you will never need, you throw them in the strongbox and convert them into an artifact set that you actually need. However, this is only one of the many traps you could fall into as a new player, potentially losing a ton of valuable resources in the process. So if you want to avoid these mistakes and start your journey off strong, then you absolutely must check out my top 10 Genshin beginner tips right here. I hope to see you all in the next one, and until then, as always, travel smart.